you and Chris Winter had an idea to have a festival. And, this is like way back in the days, like 1997, I think. You guys
yeah,
did
97.
Had an idea to do. Well, no, before Joyride, didn't you have an attempt to do something called the World Mountain Bike Free Ride Championships or something like that?
Yeah, it was called the World Free Ride Championships. And it was funny. So something we came up with in the garage, and basically it was like, we saw a hole in the sport and what everyone was doing up here compared to the racing that was available. And not that we wanted to make it, super organized or official, but we want to kind of have fun and challenge each other and create ways of building new tracks and trails. And that was an idea we came up with. So we actually, at the time, we went to Christian and Bjorn, who were, just did Cranked 1, and it was a big thing. And we're like, oh man, this is happening. And they loved the idea, and they were, inspirational to push us and moving forward with the idea. And we went down to Interbike in Vegas with this idea. And next thing you know, we had UCI knocking on our door, saying we couldn't use that name, or we'd be we'd be in trouble. We'd be in trouble. They'd shut us down pretty quick. So we're like, okay, back to the drawing board. And then Chris had the name Joyride. He came up with it, and then we're like, well, let's just call it Festival Joyride. But there was some things that happened before that. There was summer sessions here in Whistler, which was a festival that was already going, and it was race based. And then with Fanatico and the crew there, we built a
Fanatical Bike Shop.
We built a biker cross, and at the time it was before four cross or whatever they were calling it now. But
it's derivative of portercross.
Yeah,
on bikes.
Exactly. So we were skiers and snowboarders, and we're like, what's working in that sport? And hey, like BMX, let's take BMX downhill and see what happens. So that's how that started, and then we're like, man, let's do this on our own. Joyride it is, and the first one was in 2001.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you built a trail called Joyride, which I believe was going to be filmed, and it was like, you said, well, we're going to have a race. We're going to have a gnarly race. So it was kind of like, if I remember correctly, a mix of free ride and downhill, and you were going to time it and film it, if I remember correctly.
No, exactly. So as part of a festival, we had to come up with some other events, and we're like, well, let's do a gnarly downhill that has bridges and North Shore style features in it, but it's a timed downhill race, and we called it the Technical Time Trials was what it was called at the time. But then so the formality there, and this is what kind of kicked everything off, was there was no there was a couple trails on Whistler Mountain that were rogue type trails. South of Heaven was in there, and a few other trails, but there was no legitimately built trails. So Chris and I went to the administration, and we had some relationships there through skiing, and asked for permission to build this trail, and flagged it and got permission. And Paul Skelton Bones was a mountain manager at the time, and he was a big supporter of it. And basically it was the first trail built before there was a bike park. And then I think some bells went off there, and then they got some other builders involved, like Dave Kelly and guys like that. And then B-Line showed up, A-Line, and then next thing you know, we were running on weekends in the gondola, and then before you know it, we had a bike park. So there's a big that's sort of when that
which officially
happened.
Opened in '99.
Yeah, so that trail Joyride was built, and we started building it in '97.
Sick.
So
yeah. And then Beeline started shortly after, or was already just started?
Sort of. It was a 2-year build for Joyride for us. We started it and didn't finish it.
Okay.
And then the next year when we finished it, along with a bunch of help, then Marty Gotry was in there with a little Bobcat excavator building Beeline. And so, that was probably 98. And then 99, we had a bike park in Whistler.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I remember those times. It was happy times. I remember, talking to various different people that I knew in administration, and I remember trying to recommend it to them. And, years before that, they'd laugh like, oh, that would not be a great idea. And, with some work and a little bit of magic, it actually happened, and it was a great thing. And
Yeah, well, there's man, I'm trying to. It's all kind of coming back to me, but we did like dual slalom races local, and got sanctioning from Cycling BC, so we had insurance, and then they would open the gondola just for that weekend or that day, and then
Blackcomb Eliminators.
no, this is after that. So I wasn't really ever involved in Blackcomb. So this was Whistler and in the Boneyard.
Yeah,
We were building dual slalom tracks, and they would run the lift so that we didn't have to walk up. And
I
then
had one
all
of
of a
those
sudden,
at the bottom of the mountain.
yeah, people all of a sudden people started showing up, and they're like, "Man, this we could sell tickets." And yeah, one thing led to another, and it's been growing, and I'm pretty sure it's still growing right now.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it is. What I thought was very cool is like you just mentioned, the first event was a biker cross, and you guys somehow got some of the big racing stars of the day here: Cedric Gracia, Steve Pete, and Caroline Chausson, I believe Mick Hanna, and
Yeah.
you got these big time racer guys to show up and legitimize the whole scene, racing all our local dogs and whatnot, and everyone else who came and congregated here for it. But you also had some pretty big purses for the day, which enticed major stars like that, and it made it legit. Like, how did you get those purses together, and how did you convince Cedric and Petey and Caroline and McKenna to come here?
Yeah, well, there was that was sort of the plan. Was these guys, if we put enough money up, these guys would show up. So, big part of the budget was given back to the riders, and not a lot taken for the builders. Right, like at the time we were just scraping enough by to pay some rent, and we had other side jobs going on, landscaping or whatever, to pay our own bills, and we saw an opportunity, and what I think what really happened was, we weren't shy. We knew we were onto something, and we were down in Vegas and ran into certain people. Like I remember Lopes was one of them, and he had heard about the year one that Dave Watson won it, and we showed him the video and what was going on, and he loved it. So he's like, I'm coming up. I'll be there a week early. I'll look at the track. You guys want any feedback? So he was totally into it, and he helped us out. And a couple of those guys came, and we worked around the schedule when they were available. And then they all, word of mouth spread, and they're all like, "Yeah, let's go to Whistler." And yeah, it was cool, man. It was really cool. And I believe actually Lopes and Petey bought condos here after that first trip. They had so much fun, not just the riding in the bike park, but the riding in the trails and the social life here. Like the bars are just going off. So it was a lot of fun.